Hello guys. Okay, so I wanted to kind of get into a little bit more detail of calories and weight loss and how to do it. So these two ways are just ways that I use with my clients. So there are 1,000 ways to lose weight, obviously. These are the ways that I believe to be the best, the most healthy, the healthiest, um, and just the more sustainable, um, yeah, and just the easiest really to do it. There's no tricks, there's no, you know, craziness going on. There's no replacing things with other things. There's just eating food. So that's how I found to be the easiest, because when you start replacing food for other things to lose weight, yeah, you're gonna lose weight if you're like drinking shakes or something, replacing 2 whole meals a day, like duh. But are you gonna do that forever? Do you want to do that forever? I mean, maybe you do, and people, no, there's no shade anywhere. Like, if that's what you want to do, that's what's going to work for you, cool. I've just never really worked with anybody that has been something that they want to do, or that they have been able to do forever. So anyways, so 2 ways. I'm going to first talk about just kind of how I do it, how I've done it really the last few years. In the beginning, I did count calories, and I was just in a really aggressive deficit. So yeah, but the last few years I've kind of just started doing intuitive eating, which is just literally eating whole foods. I have certain metrics that I want to hit a day. So water, and I have clients that do this too. Some clients don't like to track all their food. It's draining, it can be for a certain part for different people, so it really comes down to the mental game, and I'll talk about that at the end of what is going to work best for you. So tracking habits instead of tracking calories. So I am going to take 7,500 steps a day minimum. I'm going to drink my 2 to 3 liters of water a day. I'm going to have protein with every meal, lean protein. I'm going to stay away from processed foods. I'm going to stay away from added sugars. And this is just for the most part, majority of what I'm eating. There's a small percentage of what I'm eating that is processed. I'll drink alcohol a few times a week if I want to. I'll have dessert a few times a week if I want to. So I kind of just eat everything in moderation, but there are certain targets that I try to hit every day. So that is intuitive eating, and you can still lose weight that way because you're essentially just eating whole foods. So if you are eating good and whole foods and listening to your body, and not overeating, just all these small little things, like stop when you're full. Your body is so smart. It's gonna tell you, and if you are trying to lose weight, then maybe just cutting down your portions a little bit, but you can still do that in intuitive eating. So anyways, you're still gonna lose weight. It's just gonna take you longer. So it's gonna take longer just because you're not in a calorie deficit every day. Like, I know the days that I drink alcohol, or the days that I have like processed food or dessert all in the same day kind of thing, that I'm not in a calorie deficit that day. I don't have to track to know that I'm not. Like, simple. So that's how you lose weight, calorie deficit. So certain days of the week you might be in a calorie deficit just because you ate like super clean that day, and other days you're not. So basically by the end of the week, you're going to be in a very, very small calorie deficit, because calories in, calories out for that week, obviously, right? So you've eaten more calories on certain days rather than other days, so it all ends up balancing out, and you end up putting yourself kind of in like a maintenance level, or in a small calorie deficit. If you're eating pretty clean majority of the time, you can still end up in a small calorie deficit. So you will still lose weight that way. That's how I've been doing it since I was postpartum, and I have lost all my pregnancy, I think, all my pregnancy weight that way. I'm definitely not as lean as I've ever been, but I'm still working on it. I mean, I'm literally a year into it. And that's another thing too, is just, it's a mental game, and not expecting this to happen so fast. Like, this isn't gonna just happen because you're working on it for 6 months and you've earned it. No, this is gonna take a long time, especially if you're doing it intuitive eating. But for me, it's more sustainable, and this is how I wanna live the rest of my life. Like, I'm not gonna change this. I'm not gonna be counting a certain number of calories, and then once I hit my goal, I'm gonna have to redo what it is that I'm doing. I like to do it this way. I have some clients who like to do it this way too, and they are completely fine with understanding that it might take a little bit longer, because just trying to live a healthy lifestyle, that's the goal ultimately. Losing weight, yes, that's how most of us start with this, but eventually the goal is to get you to where you're just trying to live a healthy, happy lifestyle. That's it. It's no longer about just like, oh, I want to weigh this number, that number is going to change. So anyways, and then number 2, so I also have clients do this, and these are just my clients who are more, they need to see these numbers and they need to know that they're in a calorie deficit. And also, if you need to see results faster, if that's just going to be a mental deal breaker for you, like if you don't see results and you're doing the work, then I suggest you definitely start with a calorie deficit, just because if you're in a calorie deficit every single day, I said this in my short little clip, like you have to do this every single day. Weekends count. Like, I don't know where this idea comes from that the weekends aren't. It's fine. Have a cheat day. Have it, like, what? Why would you have a cheat day? Like, have you hit any of your goals? Like, you can't. No, that's not how it works. So stop letting social media fool you, being like, oh, you get a cheat day every week, or you get to cheat this or whatever. Like, no, you don't actually. Like, you need to hit your goals. So if you're doing it this way though, if you're doing it in a calorie deficit, you need to be consistent about it every single day. You need to hit these numbers, okay? And it's not obsessive. Like, I'm not talking about like, if you're told, if your numbers are hit 150 grams of protein and you're at like 140, you're like, gonna go off the deep end here. Like, or if you're at 160, you're like, oh my God, what did I do? No, it's not that serious. Because first of all, these calculations are very, very, very good estimates. They're not exact. So they're just metrics that are going to keep you in some kind of a routine, keep your body, keep yourself feeding yourself, because a lot of people are under eating. But you have to do that all the time, and you have to understand that that's going to be more restrictive, right? So that's going to be more no alcohol, no processed foods, very minimal. So all of these things, and there's these certain things called if it fits in your macros. So basically eat whatever you want as long as it fits in your macros. And that's yes and no, because you're going to get a lot more food from whole foods, and you're going to feed and fuel your body properly, especially if you're working out. So just because McDonald's, you can eat one meal at McDonald's for the day, and that's going to be your whole macros. Just because that fits doesn't mean that's the right thing to do, and doesn't mean that's going to fuel your body properly. And you're going to be starving. You can't just eat one meal from McDonald's and be like, well, that's all I get in my calories today. So, excuse me. So it's just about still eating whole foods, but you're going to stick within these numbers. Okay. So that is going to be more restrictive. So it's just going to depend on if you can handle that. If you can handle that, no problem. You're not going to miss out on things. I know for myself, like me and my husband, we like to go out on the weekends, and we like to have a drink, and we like to, enjoy, and we like to make desserts on Saturdays and whatever, I like to go to the beach on Sundays and eat chips, and I don't want to be like, oh, I can only have half a cup of that, so it just depends on what you want, and there's no wrong or right, okay? There's just whatever is preference, and whatever you can maintain. I cannot stress this enough. It doesn't matter what somebody else is doing, because what they're doing, you don't even know what their goals are, first of all. So you can't copy it just because you look at their body and you're like, oh, I want to look like them. You have no idea what their goals are or what they're really doing. A tiny little story of their day doesn't tell you what they're doing the rest of the day. So the 2 ways, and really what it's going to come down to is, lost my train of thought. Oh, what it's really going to come down to is the mental game. What can you handle mentally? Can you handle being in a very, very, very moderate calorie deficit to maintenance calories, so you're not really losing that much weight that fast? Or can you handle being in a strict calorie deficit? It's just preference. It's what you prefer to do. And it all comes down to what you're going to do enjoying life, because this shouldn't be torture. You shouldn't be miserable. You shouldn't be starving. You should be enjoying this. This is the whole part of the journey, is to enjoy it, So take your progress photos, find good meals that you want to eat, blah, blah, blah. I could go on and on. So I just want to stay with the point here, because I probably already started rambling. So it just depends on how you want to do it. But either way, find what works for you. So if you want to start the intuitive eating like I do, which is love this way, just because there's no end game here. I'm not just gonna do this for 6 months, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and then I'm like, cool, back to my normal life. Like, no, this is how I want to live my life. This is what I want to do. This is how I feel good. I enjoy it. So that's another thing too. Like, fall in love with the journey, and then you won't be so stressed about a timeline, about like, God, I'm miserable, so I only want to do this for 60 days. I'm miserable, so I only want to do this for 90 days. Let's hurry up and get this over with, you know? Because then what? What's going to happen after 90 days? You're just going to go, you haven't learned how to eat because you've been following this cookie cutter meal plan. And then what? Like, you're going to go back and start all over? No, that's so draining mentally. So just find what works for you. It's a mental game really at the end of the day. So if you're okay with it taking a little bit longer, I 100% you look into intuitive eating. And I'm going to plug my programs at the bottom. I'm going to put my link down there so you can look at just kind of what I do. But yeah, so 2 ways is what I do it with my clients: the calorie deficit, and I do it all on my app, or I simply put habits for them to do every day. I need you to eat protein with every meal. I need you to have 3 servings of vegetables. I need you to have 2 servings of fruit. I need you to eat or drink 3 liters of water. I need you to take 7,000 steps. You know, these are all little habits that if you're hitting all of these metrics and habits, you're essentially going to be living a healthy lifestyle, because that's what it is. Okay, so I'm going to stop rambling because, like I said, I think I've kind of turned left and right and upside down a couple of times. So I hope that was helpful. And yeah, those are the 2 ways that I recommend. So intuitive eating, calorie deficit for your body. Don't just think like, oh, I need to eat 1,200 calories in my calorie deficit. No, you need to do the math. There's 1,000 macro calculators out there. So Google one, or again, I'm going to plug my link down at the bottom and I can do it for you. But just stick with those numbers consistently. And oh, last thing, don't lie to yourself. I'm sorry. Cut the bullshit. If you are in a calorie deficit and it's been 30, 60, 90 days and you haven't lost a pound, you are not in a calorie deficit. I'm sorry. Either you're not tracking it at all, or you're not tracking it correctly and you're having like a lick and a bite of that and you're not putting it in there. And you're kicking yourself in the ass because it's like, why are you doing this to yourself? Don't lie to yourself. Just cut the bullshit and track everything. If you're doing it that way, track everything, okay? Because the last thing you want to do is be 30, 60 days down the road and be like, I'm doing it. You know how mentally draining that is to think that and you might actually think you're doing it. You might not actually think you're lying to yourself. I'm not saying that, but you might actually think you're doing it, but you're not counting the bite of your son's plate that you took before you gave it to him, or eating his leftovers, or a bite of your spouse's ice cream bar. You know what I mean? You're not counting those things, and they are calories. Just because you don't track them, they're still calories, okay? So yeah, don't do that to yourself, please. Okay, I'm here for you. I hope that was good and informative. And if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments and I can talk more about it, or just answer you directly there if it's simple, or I can make another video if you want. So yeah, okay, I'm leaving. Bye.